Good evening, my fellow friends, my fellow neighbors, and my fellow shining stars. Super excited to be reconnected with all of you once again. It is the next trolley stop here at Empowered Publicity. It is episode number 79 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series. Thank you very much for spending some time with us wherever you are and wherever you may be. Shortly after 7 o'clock Eastern time on Monday evening, June the 8th, to all of our friends and neighbors tuning in on the West Coast, especially those out in San Diego, California. We appreciate you as well spending some time with us in the process. There is so much joy in my heart. There's so much love that I am feeling that I really want to share with all of you tonight. And it may seem like, the expression how the simple things, the little things mean a lot. Well, just one of the things that happened today, if I may start off by sharing, I live right next door to a beautiful library here in the Buffalo, New York area. And, we're now starting to venture out from beyond the extended quarantine setting, from beyond the virtual setting. We're seeing outdoor restaurants. We're seeing libraries open up. We're seeing stores opening up. And it's a sign that things are starting to get back to normal, but a new normal, and not the new normal that many people may classify or want us to believe. But it's a sense of gratitude, appreciation, love, kindness, and yes, wishes. Now, if you are a regular viewer here at the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series, you know that we actually have a segment here on the program towards the end of each and every trolley stop that we have here each and every Monday evening at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. We actually have a genie lamp. And you're wondering, well, do certain things come full circle in life? Well, everything comes full circle in life. So you're wondering, okay, Jonathan, you've been holding up this genie lamp for the past nearly, a little over a year plus right now. And tonight, you will see exactly how things come full circle. So the question's for you, my friends and neighbors. What if you were granted 3 wishes? Each and every Monday, of course, you are granted 3 wishes here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series. But really, what if you were granted 3 wishes? Would you wish for toys? Would you wish for candy? Would you wish for clothes? Or would you wish for happiness and for peace for everyone and everything on the planet? Well, our newest neighbor is here to remind us to take our 3 wishes tonight, tomorrow, and each and every day hereafter, and to change the world for the good. Super excited. You may hear me use the word excited several times here in tonight's Children's Book Spotlight Series. One of the top children's books, not only of 2020, but we've had the blessing of sharing such wonderful messages now for close to 6 years. One of the top children's books in recent memory, we're going to be sharing here this evening on the Children's Book Spotlight Series, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Zonderkids. Now, if you're having a little bit of a rough day, friends and neighbors, feel free to just say the name Zonderkids, and I assure you, everything will turn out okay. The brand new release, illustrated by Emma Yarlitz, and penned by our featured guest here on episode number 79 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, WPP Senior Advisor, the author of the brand new release, What Would You Wish For? We're also, of course, going to be talking about his work on board as part of the board of directors for the Special Olympics and UNICEF. And by the way, one important notice is that when you purchase your copy of What Would You Wish For, 100% of the royalties are being donated to UNICEF USA. So always you have the opportunities to give back to those in need in the process. David Sable joining us here as our featured guest here. He's here in our neighborhood. We're going to be having tremendous experience here tonight. I mentioned in the green room how okay, why are we being connected together? And you saw the trolley and then you saw the genie lamp. Are things starting to come full circle for you?
Oh my God, yeah, I love it. It's all about wishes, but it's not just about wishes, Jonathan. It's about, as you said, it's what will you wish for? What will you do? You see, we have the power to make wishes come true, but it's not because the genie makes it come true for us. It's because we wish in an impactful way. We wish in an important way, and then we set our lives to making those wishes come true. And that's really what I was trying to get across in the book. And it's something that I think we as adults sometimes forget. So we need to remind ourselves, but I think ever more importantly, we need to teach this to our children.
100%. For those of our friends and neighbors who are, of course, tuning in live, if this message is bringing hope and healing and joy and love into your heart, if you feel that it needs to be shared with someone in need, if there's someone that you know that is down on their luck, maybe they need to be reminded that they have the abilities to bring into form and shape whatever it is that they want to co-create for themselves. If you simply just love great children's books, we encourage you to share the message behind what would you wish for in this week's all-new edition of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, episode 79 on Facebook, or if you're tuning in to the archive, the replay edition of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, we encourage you to share on your favorite social media platforms of choice, in addition to Facebook. David, everything behind this book, everything behind the message within it, its intentionality, its purity is very clear. People who are familiar with your work know that you have a very visible presence on social media, right? And I think that one of the old, and this may be more of a stereotypical kind of thing, is that, you know, people that are quote unquote celebrities or people that have the green check marks on Facebook or Twitter or all of the above, right? That they may seem stuffy, that they may not necessarily care. It just may be in word or just by financial donations. You give of your time and you give of your heart. I am so fascinated to ask this first question. How did this concept of this book come to form and shape? Because it seems like this is something that necessarily didn't just happen overnight.
It didn't. The truth of the matter is, Jonathan, a couple of years ago, I realized that we were coming in, this is already before this place we are today, that we were coming into what I thought was going to be a difficult time. Social media was already spinning out of control. Hatred, just fake news, violence was all coming through this incredible creation that was supposed to bring people closer together, that was supposed to create harmony, and it was going the other way. And I spent a lot of time thinking about the social media in general, and we talked about this before, and we can talk about it a little later in depth, but this notion of think before you share. Think before you share is incredibly important, because sometimes the things that you share, even inadvertently, cause hurt and just put people in a bad place. But I started talking with my grandchildren and my children, and one day I just woke up and I said, what if I had 3 wishes? What would I do? And I started to think about it. I said, what today would kids do? Well, look what they see on social media. Of course they're going to ask for all the toys and to be famous and to be a movie star and to have ice cream, all the ice cream in the world. But the truth is, if you make a wish like that, there are consequences, big consequences, because if you are the only one, if you have all the toys in the world, your friends don't have any toys. If you get all the ice cream, no one else has ice cream. And so I started to think and say, that's what's happening. How do we change that? And so that led me to this notion of what would you wish for? What would you do? And would you wish for these things? It's okay. It's not evil to wish for good things like that. It's great. But remember that you're putting your friends on the outside of it. And if you see Emma's brilliant illustrations, you can see how there's always children on the outside of the wish. They're kind of looking in, and they get angrier and angrier and more frustrated. But in the end, when it can be, you can wish for good things. You can wish for love and peace and joy for every girl and boy. That becomes everybody coming in together. And I think that, as I said before, that is a lesson that we need to remember for ourselves as much as we say it for our children.
The timing of this message, one of the things that certain people may realize who kind of, whether they're children's book aficionados, maybe there's some children's authors that are tuning in tonight. When you go through the process of publishing a children's book, it's a process that can take a couple of years. So it sounds like you obviously didn't know that this whole COVID-19 thing would be coming and that the world would literally be changing as we know it.
I had no idea. I just knew that we were going into a bad place. And I have to give a shout out to my friend and mentor and who's the most generous person I know, Kwame Alexander. who is an incredible author, as you know. And when I first wrote the book, I called him up, and I didn't know him, but I knew who he was, and he had just started his new label, and I was able to get in touch with him. It's easy for me to find people. I found him, and I said, Kwame, you don't know me, but could I come talk to you? And he said, sure. And he invited me to his house in Virginia. I went, and we sat for a couple of hours. And finally, at the end, I said, look, I have to be honest with you. I have an ulterior motive. I wrote this book. I have no illustrations because I don't even know how to get started. Could I read it to you? If you tell me it's bad, I promise you I'll never bother you again. But if you like it, tell me what to do. So I read it to him. I had it printed out like on pieces of paper, and I read it out to him. And he sat afterwards, and he took it from me. And I said, well, what do you think? He goes, I happen to be going to HarperCollins tomorrow. I have a meeting with the editorial board, and I'm giving it to them. Now, first of all, just think about the generosity. So Kwame, wherever you are, I love you dearly. But that was what began the process. And then from that point on, they allowed me to pick an illustrator. I chose Emma. I didn't know. I saw her work, and I loved it. They helped me rewrite it into poetry because I had written it as prose. And the rest is just what happened. It's great.
And it's really exciting to hear how the journey of the book unfolded. And I think that this is what many of us are starting to become more open to, is the fact, kind of the way that things used to be is, many of us would like to try to control things, control our own streams, control the collective stream, so to speak. And when you just take the time to just go with the flow, still follow your guidance, follow your heart, and just allow the right people and the right things to be able to come in, it really is a recipe for creating magic, which is absolutely fantastic. Talk to our listeners, talk to our friends and neighbors, if you could, and our viewers, about the intentionality behind the book, because it seems obviously one thing is clear, that even though from when the book was first written to when it was published, it seems that the intentionality was the same, but this sort of a message, especially when it comes to, what would you wish for, what would you do, taking the time to really think about what it is that you want to create, what it is that you want to be able to do for yourself, and what it is that you want to give back to others. It seems that that's much more, that's felt on more of a deeper level now than maybe if this whole situation didn't happen over the past several months. Is that a correct estimation?
Yeah,
Dave?
Totally correct. I mean, it's good luck and bad luck. I mean, it's good luck for me, bad luck for the rest, and bad luck for me as well, because we've all been through this. I was sick with COVID early on, but I think that really part of the intentionality comes from my upbringing. My father was a rabbi. I grew up as the son of a rabbi. I went to Jewish schools my entire younger life, and we have in our faith, we believe that everything is free choice. You always have free choice. So even though God may show you a path, you have free choice. Now, sometimes you make the right choice, sometimes you make the wrong choice, sometimes you make a choice you never thought of. And there's one story that I love to tell. It's a story that we tell in school when you're kids, but we all know the famous story of the children of Israel standing at the Red Sea, right? And there's this roiling sea in front of them, and the chariots of the Pharaoh are coming from behind them, and they're stuck in the middle, and they don't know what to do. You've all seen Charlton Heston and Your Brother in the movie, and you know that famous scene. And the people cry out to Moses, like, what did you do? It was not that bad. Like, we're going to get killed here. We're going to drown. We're going to get killed. Like, what did you do? And Moses turns to God, and this is in the text, in the biblical text, and he says, like, God, what am I supposed to do? And God says to him, like, why are you calling out to me? Just move forward. Go. And according to our Jewish tradition, there was one man who jumped into the water. He was the first, and when the water reached his nose, the sea split. And that story always stuck with me, because it's basically what the basis of this book is. It's you can pray, you can wish, you can think, but if you don't do, nothing happens. The intentionality of purpose is what changes the world. And I think when you put all that together, that's really what we need more of. We need way more of that. It's not about holding Bibles up. It's about the intentionality of purpose. It's about understanding that we can change the world. But you can only do it if you think about it, if you believe in it, and if you make it happen. So it just all came together. My early days, my kids, my grandchildren.
And one of the things that actually comes to mind when you're sharing that is the importance of there's thought, there's word, and there's action. And again, since we're in this very transparent society, right? There was a lot of people for a long period of time that would just be, they were going to say they were going to do something. In fact, you may even hear people say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And they spend more time saying that they're going to do something than actually doing it. But we're also starting to see one of the things right now, and this kind of leads me into my next question, is I feel that we're, especially, for all of you astrology buffs out there, it's eclipse season. Now, I like to think that, I'm not sure if you're an astrology buff, David. I'm really not an astrology buff, but there's certain things I do resonate with. One of the things I really believe, and I always say this, I have conversations with the full moon. I call her La Luna because every single time there's a full moon in the sky, there's magic and miracles there's happened. So not only was there just a full moon this past Friday, but it's also eclipse season. What is this really all means is that we live in a time of instantaneous manifestation. The old phrase of be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. Now it's be careful what you wish for because you will get it. What is there's people I feel that might be tuning in right now and watching this week's children's book Spotlight series. They may be one of the 40 plus million Americans that may be out of work. Maybe someone is just gone through a series of unfortunate events over the course of the past several months, kind of like that compounding effect. And there's people that might be forgetting right now that they have it within them to bring into form and shape whatever it is that they want to create for themselves. What would be some words of advice and encouragement that you could share with our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors that may have a little bit of a difficulty realizing that they are their own co-creators, more or less?
So, Jonathan, that's such an interesting point. I'm always very careful because it's so easy to tell people who are down and out in the luck for a short period of time what to do and how to think. And what I think is more important is for people like us to be reaching out, to let them know, to remind them that we're here for them. And I think that the biggest thing, the biggest anything that we can do for anybody is to reach out. And never virtual hug today. I'm a big hugger, but virtual hug today. And make sure that your friends, your neighbors, people even that you don't know, that you're paying everything forward because you never know. And I'm a big believer in paying forward. I always believe that anybody that comes to me that wants to talk, anybody that asks to share a resume, whatever it is, I always have seen them. I've always done what I can do. Because you never know when you're on that other side. And I think that you, as the person who is in need to know that you can reach out. I think the worst thing happens is when you feel lonely. When you feel lonely and alone are two very different things. And I think that it's come across during COVID, the difference. I've written about this a lot, the notion of how because you have lots of friends and likes on Facebook or Twitter or TikTok, it doesn't make a difference, is meaningless. Because who will pick you up at the airport? I started writing this like literally the first year Facebook went public. I said, this is all very nice, but the only true measure of a friend is the person who picks you up at the airport in the middle of the night. That's your friend, not the person who gives you a thumbs up. And so what's happened during COVID is there are a lot of people, we've all been alone. One way or another, some of us have been alone, just one, like solo. Some have been alone together, or some have been alone in different ways. But not everybody was lonely, because even when you were alone, it wasn't your Facebook and your Zoom that brought you together. It was knowing that somebody cared.
Mm.
It was knowing that if there was someone out there, you could reach out and they'd reach back to you. But you weren't lonely. But there are people out there who are lonely because they don't know that they can reach out. They don't have anybody to reach out to. And so what I tell you is, if you're sitting there and you're feeling alone, reach out. Because there are a lot of people who will help you. I really believe it. There are a lot of people who will help you. There are a lot of places you can go to get help, for people who listen to you, who can help you, who can try to make things better. And if you don't do that, it's like, what would you wish for? What would you do? This is what you have to do. You have to get out. You have to reach. Because if you don't reach out, if you don't initiate the hug, sometimes you just have to. But you'll be surprised how quickly that hug will come back to you.
It's also interesting that you mentioned that. And of course, where are my manners? For those of you who are just tuning in to our next Trolley Stop Together, episode number 79 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series, we have David Sable joining us for sharing his brand new release, What Would You Wish For?, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at zonderkids.com. Head on over to Amazon.com, purchase your purchase your 5-star review. No, leave your organic, purchase your
5-star review. We need those.
leave your 5-star review.
Authors need those. Very important.
In the process, and of course, as you are venturing out back into stores, whether it be Barnes and Nobles or your local independent children's bookstores, just local independent stores in general, and you see David's book, you see What Would You Wish For, feel free to purchase your copy in the process. And again, the whole team at Zonder Kids has done an incredible job sharing this message. Emma did a great job with the illustrations as well. Also want to publicly acknowledge two of our favorite neighbors, Rocco Stano and Julie Gribble, the entire team at Kidlit TV.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Shared in the comments below is the link to David's amazing Read Out Loud, which is now available. We'll be talking a little bit more about the exciting work that we have the opportunities to be doing this summer with the team at Kidlit TV throughout the course of our time together here this evening on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. David, we talked about in the Empowered Publicity Green Room before we went on air, really some of the magic and miracles that have been happening, the silver linings within COVID-19, the extended quarantine, whatever terminology that one feels comfortable in sharing, these past 3 months, right? And two of the things that really stand atop is the fact that children and parents and families are coming closer together, and people are reading more, whether it be just, people reading, it doesn't necessarily have to be children's books. It can just be their own favorite books, but there's something about the energy of children's books. Like it's kind of interesting because, many people for whatever reason or other may have been afraid to go outside, right? Or if they just go outside, it's maybe to the mailbox or maybe for a walk around the block. It's no joke. You take a look at your book is the color of sunshine. Right now, and maybe I might be kind of reaching a little bit, David, but I don't think so, right? I see the energy, and I felt the energy behind your book, and it's like one of the greatest things to happen during COVID-19 is I was introduced to your work.
Wow,
and so if you could further elaborate on, especially for people that, maybe are bringing new ones into the world during this particular point in time, talk to us about the magic and the miracles that really lie in the healing energy that lies within children's books, and especially that connection that you establish with your little one during this time, if you take the time to read with them.
Right. So I really do believe that, by the way. And so what's so interesting is that if you go back a few years, books were dead, right? Talk to any pundit, any great analyst would have told you children's books were dead. Children weren't going to read anymore. It was never going to happen. Children weren't even going to read electronic books. They were too long. They were too complicated. And you all saw these little YouTube videos of the kid going like this on a page of a book because they knew how to use an iPad or their iPhone or whatever. That is so not true. So first of all, I have grandchildren. I see my grandchildren. My grandchildren know the difference between a book and an iPad and an iPhone and a television screen and a computer and whatever else. From literally the age of 1, they all know the difference. And they all know what a book is, and they all know how to appreciate a book. My proof point is that over the past 5 years, Jonathan, the sales of children's books have gone up, not just in the United States, but around the world. And there's some beautiful children's books out. It's incredible. And so you come to the age of COVID, and what happens? We're locked down, and your kids are watching YouTube all day, or they're Zooming with their school, and they get Zoom brain, which is close to brain freeze. And they have, and you just need something else to do. And reading is just a great thing. And reading with your child is an incredible thing. And you've seen more and more and more pictures being posted of people doing that. Now, I believe that part of this, and again, something we talked about in the green room, what we're seeing in COVID, and I think this is another one of those, the positive developments, if you will, something I've written a lot about. We talk a lot in our world about innovation, right? We all want innovation. We talk about innovation, innovation, innovation. But here's the fact, or here's the David Sable fact. There are no facts. This is my fact. Innovation has become, how do I get pizza delivered quicker? Now, having said that, I seem to remember that when I was a kid, pizza came delivered pretty quick, and it was hot and fresh, way hotter and fresh than it is today with all of the apps and stuff. That's a separate story we'll talk about another time. But the truth is that that's what innovation has become. How do I get you to buy more? How do I make it easy for you to shop? But what happened during this COVID is ingenuity came back to the forefront. And ingenuity is not innovation. Ingenuity is, how do I solve problems with few resources? So I'm stuck in the house. I can't go out. Maybe I got a couple of things delivered. I'm kind of worried because I'm not getting enough. Well, what do? You know what you do? You figure out how to make puppets with your kids, like I used to do when I was young. I made a tree with my granddaughter. Now, some of you might remember this. She and I happened to be watching some kids show on her iPad. You tape 3 pieces of newspaper together, you roll it up tightly, you push the top down, you cut it, you push the other side down, cut it, and then you pull it up from the center and you have a tree. It was the most incredible experience doing it with her. And she still has it sitting here. But that's ingenuity. That's not innovation. And I think that we're getting back we're getting back in touch with our core. That's core human DNA, is ingenuity. Because how do we do more with less, but how do we do it in a way that's involving? How do we do it in a way that's inclusive? How do we do it in a way that just solves problems for us? And I think that coming out of this, we're seeing more and more of that. And by the way, I also believe that is a uniquely American attribute, is this notion of ingenuity. Back in the day, back in the 1800s, the Marquis de Tocqueville came to the United States. It's a long story. It's actually going to be a piece I'm posting this week. And he wrote about the difference between the democracy in the United States and what was happening in Europe. He came from France. And it was ingenuity was the thing that he saw as being different. That Americans learned how to coalesce to solve problems in a way that people in Europe didn't know how to do. And I love that notion. And I think, by the way, it's a healing notion for us today, the ability to come together to solve problems, because we so desperately need that. We so desperately need to be there. And so I'm excited, because I think coming out of this, hopefully we keep that momentum. We keep that momentum of ingenuity and build on it and learn to create more. So I think that's the way I would look at it.
I feel too, to kind of piggyback off of what you had just shared, what comes to mind is the fact that we're doing things now, we're choosing to engage in things that really are meaningful. There's a difference between just doing stuff, filling the time, filling the space. Like, how many things on your to-do list, there's things we have to do, wash the dishes, take out the dog, take out the garbage, etc. and so forth. But how many things on that to-do list are things that actually light your fire, are things that you really want to do? And people are choosing to now value the quality of things, the quality of their relationships, the quality of their purchases, to be able to have, look back on your day and express the gratitude. It really is those simple things that may have seemed like small potatoes before, and these things realistically stand out now more than ever before. For those, of course, who are tuning in both live and archived to this week's edition of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, we are giving away 2 copies of What Would You Wish For, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Zonder Kids. So starting off with, of course, one of our lucky live neighbors who is tuning in this evening, and those who are actually tuning in on the flip side of things via our official Facebook page. We're going to be selecting 2 of you to actually have some wishes be delivered to you. So it's very interesting. You might say, well, maybe I'm just, wishing for, some good luck to come my way, right? Well, you may get a children's book coming, but not just any children's book, one of the most heartfelt and heart-centered children's books of 2020. Talking about creating the life you desire. I feel that really it's interesting because, one of the movies that's been coming to mind, especially recently, is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, right? And you see Charlie, and he wins there, and he gets the golden ticket, and like his whole life is about to change, right? I feel that, one of the old mindsets, the old beliefs is that when something happens, whether it be the Great Depression, whether it be COVID-19, whether it just be, something on a big scale, but maybe not a global big scale. Maybe it's, losing a loved one, whether it be losing a job, those sorts of things. One tends to think, quote unquote, things are going to get bad, right? But it has been proven that some of the greatest things come out of the most difficult of challenges. Could you share some things that come to mind about, I guarantee that there's people that really want to step into their life purpose. This is a really big summer of life purpose, but people may not necessarily know like what that next step is. People may want to break free from the 9 to 5. They may say, you know what, well, I got laid off from my job. Maybe this is a sign, right? People always say, God, send me a sign. How can people begin to create the life that their heart desires this summer and make that more into their new reality?
So, Jonathan, it's something we all struggle with, including myself, right? I mean, we all go through periods of our lives, and we have to recreate who we are, recreate what we do, look for the next gig, if you will. And sometimes it's scary, and you just have to, you try to go with it as best you can. What I'm always conscious of is my late grandfather. So my late grandfather came from Russia. He escaped persecution. He came to America in the early part of the last century, joined the U.S. Army, World War I, because he got immediate citizenship, fought in the war, went and lived in a little town upstate New York called Kingston, New York. Was a poor, maybe was a tailor, was not a wealthy man, wasn't well educated by any means, but he was one of the wisest people that I know. And my grandfather always used to say, he didn't know the word entitlement. I guarantee you he never heard the term entitlement, but he always taught us, the world owes you nothing. That's a quote. The world owes you nothing. You owe the world. And it's always something that I share, because I think entitlement is what gets in our way. I think when we feel entitled, we lose our drive. We lose the what would you do part of the what would you wish for, because we feel that we're entitled to get it done. I'm entitled to that job. I'm entitled to that money. I'm entitled to that honor. I'm entitled to whatever. Truth of the matter is we're entitled to nothing. We're lucky. We've been born into this world, and we have to make the most of it. And making the most of it means that you don't feel entitled. Nobody owes you anything. The world owes you nothing. And I've always found that when I approach issues that way, when I approach problems that way, when I approach relationships that way, it just makes it that much better and that much more meaningful for me to move forward. And if you don't succeed, well, you just go back at it again. If you don't succeed, you go back at it again. And eventually you're successful. But if you feel entitled, you don't succeed the first time, you sit and stew. You get angry. Everybody's against you. The world hates you. You don't have good luck. That's not a place. You're never going to come out of that. Kwame told me that his first book, I forgot the number, but it was astronomical, the number of publishers he sent it to. And so here's Kwame Alexander, one of the great, in my view, one of the great children's author of all times. And to get his first book published, he had to send out 100 different manuscripts, 100 different publishers to get it published. But he didn't stop because he didn't feel entitled. He didn't say, you owe me to publish that book. He just went back and back and back and back. And that's what you have to do. That's the only way to be successful.
One of the things, David, that kind of tying into what you had just shared is, you know, we talked in the green room a little bit about this. We talked a little bit about this earlier, is the importance of paying it forward. I was actually going to ask this question a little bit later in our conversation, but I think now's an appropriate time to ask. You know, I could easily mention that you were selected as both a top 20 must-know global influencer by LinkedIn, a top 10 most generous marketing genius by Fast Company. Again, you're on multiple different boards. Someone could walk up to you and say, you could be high and mighty. You could totally be off your rocker. You could totally live from your ego because you have these bells and these whistles and these titles. So a twofold question is that you're a very humble man. You love to give back. You love it. I mean, that feels very, very palpable. What helps to keep you grounded so that you're not like up in your head versus in your heart? And then really the importance of keeping that humbleness. How important is that right now, especially if like we're, you know, let's say there's many people that are tuning in this week, they're starting to come into that next level of health, that next level of wealth, that next level of love, and they're really leveling up and they want to be able to maintain that. Really, why is the key, or one of the keys to that, being able to pay it forward, especially right now moving forward?
So I've written a lot about leadership, and I believe that humility is one of the key attributes of leadership. Real leaders have humility. And what do I mean by that? You're not falsely humble. This isn't about Uriah Heep going, oh, Mr. Copperfield, Mr. Copperfield. You know, false humility is the worst thing in the world. I think people who are truly have humility have good egos. I mean, I'm not embarrassed to say I have a healthy ego. It's not that I'm humble and hiding in some hole someplace. It's that I understand who I am. I think self-awareness is a big key to humility. Now, I'm lucky for the past 40 plus years, my wife reminds me that the emperor has new clothes, which is really important. I think it's actually one of my favorite stories, because I think the true depth of that story is that we all walk around naked. And sometimes you just need a beat into your head. I'll tell you one of the great experiences of my life. Last summer in August, I had the opportunity to meet the Pope. Now, I didn't meet the Pope on a line with 400 people or in a mission with 30 people and sent in a room. I was with 3 other people. 4 of us together sat with him for an hour. It was just one of the most incredible experiences. But here's the piece of it that's so important. I wrote a piece on this you can find on LinkedIn about lessons in humility, or the lessons in leadership from the Pope. I called it actually 2 rabbis, a lawyer, and an ad guy meet the Pope. And it sounds like a bad joke, but it's true. And that's exactly the meeting I was in. And you've all been to this meeting, right? Everybody who's listening, I'm sure, has been to this meeting that I'm going to describe. You come to your meeting, you come to your appointed time, and somebody walks in and says to you, David, I'm really sorry, but Charles can't see you right away. I know it's 4 o'clock. He says, don't worry. He's just finishing something else up. He'll be with you in a while. And you wait an hour. Now, what am I, chopped liver? Come on. I had a 4 o'clock appointment. Be ready at 4 o'clock to see me. I'm happy you're finishing something else. Obviously, that's more important than me. We've all been to that meeting. Here we are in the Vatican, in the Pope's private residence, not in the palace, because he doesn't live there. He lives on the side. this small room. Comes the appointed time. There's a knock on the door, and the Pope is standing there. Jonathan, you have no idea. There's no entourage. Nobody opened the door and blew a trumpet and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Pope." Just stood there. And he walks into the room. He has no entourage. He's not carrying a phone. He's got nothing with him. And we were short a chair. And he starts walking out. I swear to you, he starts walking out to get the chair. And I said, no, Your Holiness, we'll get it. And so we sat, we talked. I also paid attention. If you know, his predecessor was very into the regalia and wore the famous shoes of the fisherman. So I'd always been interested in religion. I'd studied about Pope and the way they dress. And so the shoes of the fisherman, the red shoes, are very, very famous. They're Ferragamo, they cost like $10,000 or something. They're crazy priced. And I looked at his feet. He was wearing a pair of cheap orthopedic shoes, the kind of shoes that an 80-year-old priest would wear. And I was blown away. From his shoes to his demeanor, he didn't pick up a phone once. He didn't say, I have to leave. What time? He just sat with us and sat with us and sat with us. And so when the meeting was over and we were leaving, so I have this wonderful picture. I'm saying goodbye to him, and you can see he's laughing. And so everybody wanted to know, why was the Pope laughing? Like, how'd you get the Pope to laugh? We know you like make jokes all the time. How'd you get the Pope to laugh? So as I was leaving, he looked at me and he said, pray for me. And I just looked him in the eye and I said, Your Holiness, all due respect, I came here hoping you were going to pray for me. Let's be serious. And he said, okay. He goes, I pray for you. You pray for me. And we made a deal and we shook on. And the humility was so humbling. Like, you want to be humbled? That is being humbled. When you see somebody like that who's standing at the head of this huge religion, has tens, hundreds of millions of people around the world who at his beck and call, walks in with such humility, it just makes you feel humble. And you just look and say, wow, how can I aspire to be a leader like that? How can I really have true humility, not false humbleness, but true humility? So I think, to me, that's so key to leadership and so key to being successful. I think it draws people in. I think it makes you real. I think it's critical.
I feel that it's very interesting because if you take a look at your calendar, we're literally approaching the halfway point of the year. And I think that many people might just want to, just forget the first half of 2020 didn't exist, right? It's just like, let's just get into the good half. Like,
what day of the week is it again, right?
Just to get into the good part of the book or the good part of the movie. But I feel that everything that we've experienced thus far has really projected us and has set us up for the best that is now to come, not only this year. I feel that, one of the things that's been happening is that you're starting to see the best of humanity. Maybe you've also been seeing the worst of humanity, but, I feel that you're seeing neighbors come together. You're seeing people like, as I mentioned, literally, here in the Buffalo, New York area, Western New York, where I reside, it's a very tight-knit community. We have the second largest 4th of July celebration in all of Western New York. But I'm a little disappointed because this is the first year in recent, not doing the fireworks this year. But we talked in the green room, and if you can kind of expand upon this a little bit further, you really believe that, people are going to be really not just saying they're going to be neighbors. We're really going to be feeling the word, the essence, the embodiment of the word neighbor. And we're starting to actually connect more so with our neighborhoods and that neighborhood feeling. It's not just going to be a Mr. Rogers-ism. It really is going to be more of a common thread. Could you share a little bit more?
Yeah, I really do believe that. So I've been working with a little startup called Cinch, C-I-N-C-H. And pre-COVID, they had created a software platform that connected stores in the neighborhood with the residents in the neighborhood. Most of the stores don't have sophisticated digital capabilities. And it was very nice. And I thought it was a great product and really interesting. What happened during COVID is that the founder pivoted a little bit. And what she realized was that these are stores that people love. And even though they buy on Amazon, there were certain things that they bought from these little stores and they couldn't get to them. And so what she did is she started working with a company that does local delivery. And the insight was that Amazon, you order from Amazon and you get 20 boxes to your building. From, everything you order comes in a different box, and you have thing, and the building is filled with boxes, and you're worried about the boxes because you don't know whether are they clean, are they not clean, COVID, etc. It takes longer to get the box today than it did originally. And so what she started doing was using the neighborhood and somebody, a delivery service that would go around the neighborhood with your order, go to the 2 or 3 stores you're interested in, put it all in one box, packaged beautifully with a little note, and bring it to your building. The most interesting thing is the doormen loved it. The doormen loved it because there were less boxes, and they sort of got this notion of what it's for. And she put a little sticker on every box, what are neighbors for? And all of a sudden, people started to react to this, and the stores were interested, and the residents are interested. I think what's going to happen coming out of this, people are going to travel less in their cities because they don't want to get on the trains necessarily, they don't want to get on the buses, so they're going to look in their neighborhoods more. They're going to be more interested in shopping in the neighborhoods. They're going to explore again in their neighborhoods. They're going to look to see who else is in the neighborhoods. I mean, one of the things that we found, and until our building emptied out, but in the early days, I was lying sick in bed, and my wife said when she would come up in the elevator and she'd be downstairs and everyone would have a mask on, it would be, why don't you take the elevator? No, you go in first. Oh, what apartment are you in? So all these people that you kind of, during the previous time, you would just sort of get in the elevator and go hi and then look up. Now all of a sudden you're talking, how are you? How are your kids? And so I think that coming out of this, we're going to hopefully find that in many, many neighborhoods, you're going to find way more desire to feel the neighborhood, to be in the neighborhood, to make the neighborhood work for you, because it's just so clear that that's what you have at the end of the day. That's what becomes important for you. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think we'll also see, and I have to tell you, I'm so encouraged by this. So we had the terrible death of George Floyd and all that it entails. It hurt everybody. Everybody with a conscience was hurt by it. And it makes you realize that you can't just thumb up or like or say, wow, that's terrible. You have to do something. And we know that there were days of bad things happening, and we know that there were people who took advantage. And the most beautiful thing is that those people were called out. And if you've paid attention, the last 2 days have been days of people of all types, all races, all colors, all religions coming together. We're seeing it here in New York. We saw it in Washington. I think we're seeing it across the country. That once we sort of cleaned out the people who were taking advantage and weren't doing it, we've seen people coming together in ways that they haven't come together in a long time. And I'm praying that we build on that and that becomes a platform for us. Whatever your politics are, I don't care. Whatever your politics are, it should be a platform for building, a platform for building trust, a platform for building hope. And I see it, and I'm very hopeful. And so I'm hoping again that that's something that comes out of this. That we leave this, and it's what would you wish for? What would you do? I wish that we live in a world where racism and hatred don't exist, but wishing isn't enough. What would you do? You have to speak out. You have to do something. So,
a lot of good nuggets for us that we're processing here, friends and neighbors. Don't you agree? We encourage you, as we're beginning to wind down our time with David Sable joining us as our featured guest here on episode number 79 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, to head on over to Amazon.com, to head on over to your favorite local bookstore, your favorite children's bookstore, Barnes & Noble, and purchase your copy of What Would You Wish For, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Zonder Kids. While over at Amazon, feel free to leave your 5-star review in the process if you feel guided to do so. I think that a great segue is, we're talking about neighborhoods, we're talking about things becoming better. And I feel that it really is up to us. We might say, well, it's up to the congressman, or it's up to the person who has more, higher authority. And we're starting to see, even just, I believe in Minneapolis, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday, they're beginning the steps of, or they may already have done so, of disbanding their police department and create more of a community-oriented, heart-centered law enforcement, if you want to call it that, right? What are some little ways that we can make the world a better place? It doesn't have to be about hitting that home run. We can, use a baseball analogy. We can hit multiple singles and it can even do more good than that grand slam.
So I think one of the things we can do is use social media better, because I think that social media has become the gasoline on the fire. And what you see is there's so much fake news and there's so much bad stuff shared. Friends, think before you share. Share nothing if you haven't vetted it, if you haven't made sure it's true. And even after you know it's true, think twice before you share it. Think about who it might hurt. Think about what it might cause. And I think that if you start with thinking about that and share things that are good and positive, and things that build, and things that give people hope, as opposed to things that separate us and cause hatred and distrust, I can't think of a better way to start. I can't think of a better place to begin, because we do need to heal. There's no question. We're in a healing process here. But I think that's very fundamentally true. I think the second thing is understand the difference between diversity and inclusion. Diversity is a great term, right? Diversity is, we all look at percentages, right? Am I diverse enough? Do I have my percentage of people of color? Do I have my percentage of religion? Do I have my percentage of race, of whatever? And that's kind of gender. But percentages are easy, right? Percentages are easy. You show a graph, it's great. I'm working on it. It's getting better. I have people. Inclusion is different. Because inclusion means I don't just have a percentage on my books. I've included everybody in the process. I include everybody in what I do. I bring everybody to the table at the same time. And I think that if you think about those two things, about think before you share and inclusion, how do I include people? Not enough to talk about diversity, not enough to make that your mantra, make inclusion your mantra. How do I change the world? We change the world by doing things. And I think that thinking before you share and inclusion are two of the most powerful tools that you can bring to the table today that can really make a huge difference in where we go in the future.
And if you want to talk about a visual about changing the world, one of my favorite illustrations, if I may share, David, and what you would wish for, that Emma did a beautiful job on, is towards the end of the book, you see this beautiful rainbow. This beautiful, rainbows are always a sign of new life. It's the sunshine after the rain, so to speak. And, David reminds us, if you had some wishes just for you, what would you wish for? What would you do? So it's not just a matter of the wishing, friends and neighbors. It's a matter of the doing as well. Before we get into that 3 wishes segment, by the way, David, I did want to talk about your work as part of the board of directors for the Special Olympics and UNICEF. Of course, to mention again, that 100% of the royalties of What Would You Wish For are being donated to UNICEF USA. You have such a big heart. And I feel that you are making more of a difference than you realize. And again, people don't necessarily need to be on the board of directors to be able to make a difference. I'm just curious, your thought process right now, being a part of those sorts of organizations, what is really your mantra moving forward to be able to have the work that you're doing with the Special Olympics, with UNICEF, be even that much more authentic, transparent, genuine, so that these sorts of, because there's been a lot of charities, non-for-profits that have also been suffering as the result of COVID-19, because people haven't been able to donate, there haven't been events, those sorts of things. So I'm really curious to get your thoughts on really how you envision the day-to-day and how things are going to be changing and transforming with non-for-profits and for charities, just from what you've been seeing over the course of the past several months?
So as you point out, a lot of the charities and a lot of the bigger nonprofits in particular raise the big money by having big events. And you honor somebody, and being honored is actually an act of great, tremendous humility, because the only reason we're honoring you is because you can bring in more people. Like, you need to understand that. And that's great. Like, you could be a wonderful person, but we need you to bring in all these people to give money in your honor, because they don't ordinarily support our organizations. And so that's typically how big organizations work. Obviously, it's difficult. So you have to expand your base. You have to look out. And so once again, the little money is becoming more important, and people becoming involved with us and people becoming part of the process. You really can change the world. So when you think about UNICEF is so interesting. Very often the UN in the US gets a bad rap, rightly or wrongly, often rightly. But children are children, and we have to help children. We have to give children a chance to live, whether it's here or anywhere else. And what's sad, kind of, is that even in the United States, we have a need. And so in UNICEF, we used to not really, UNICEF USA, we raised money that mostly went abroad. But today, after the various hurricanes and some of the other disasters, the immigration crisis, we've actually gotten active in the US as well. And so that's so empowering. It's so interesting. I went down a year ago. I walked the immigrant trail from Tijuana to San Diego with some of my board members and friends, just to see what was going on and to see how do we help the children, because it's about the children. I don't care about it's the children. How do we help the children? So I think you can help. Special Olympics is incredible. When you want to talk about loneliness, think about where these children were. Some of these Down syndrome children who 50 years ago were locked in rooms, collars. Some of them literally had collars around their neck and were chained to trees. You have no idea what it was like. And the Special Olympics comes along and says, all right, we're going to start in the backyard, Ethel Kennedy's backyard, Shriver rather. And all of a sudden, it changes the world. It completely changes the world. So I work closely with Tim Shriver, who's the chairman, whose mother founded it. And it's unbelievable, because I've been to Dubai and I've been to Los Angeles for the World Games. You have no idea what it's like to walk into a stadium filled with people who are cheering for these athletes who 50 years ago, people thought that they had no hope for them. They thought like they couldn't walk, never mind run and do gymnastics and swim and do biking. Every single Olympic sport, almost, I think, we duplicate in the Special Olympics. And so there's a way you can make huge effort, huge difference by volunteering, coming to the games, by giving money. And again, it's not about giving thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars. It's about making a commitment. Make a commitment. Give what you can. Give what you can afford. Decide that you want to help children, because children are the future, and decide that that's what you want to do. And I think, or pick whatever charity you want, and just understand that that's you paying it forward. You are paying it forward. That's your insurance policy. That's how I look at it. And so I just think that never before has it been so important to have everybody involved, because we don't have access right now to the pipeline that we used to have. So we need to have more of you. We need to have a bigger audience. So help.
David, your commitment to the children, like I have no words to be able to describe. So I'm just going to hold up a genie lamp, because you have given so freely from your heart to your family, to the children of the world, just to provide hope and encouragement for people that are going through difficult times in their life. So you are being given 3 wishes. So it's interesting, because you probably didn't think about Leah just like, okay, this is going to be an interview and I meet Jonathan, it's going to be this great experience. but you've been spending time reminding people about their 3 wishes. So now you are being given 3 wishes tonight. Now, whether it be for yourself, whether it be for your family, whether it be for the world, what would those 3 wishes be for yourself, David?
I think that sort of it's sort of a tricky question for me, particularly after everything we've just talked about.
Yep.
And I don't want to sound treacly or cheesy but I think that one wish would definitely be that there'd be more tolerance in the world. I'm not about kumbaya. I don't think that I'm not sure we'll ever get to a place where everybody has to like everybody else. I don't really care if you like me, just tolerate me, treat me nicely. So I think one would be that there'd be more tolerance in the world. I think the second is that we spend more time thinking about how to change the world than we do about delivering pizza quicker. I think that's always my my example, because I think there's so many things you can do when you think about COVID and you think about how unprepared we were. And not that anybody knew it was coming, we weren't, but there were so many things we could have done. They could have been in place, but just people didn't pay attention to it. Can't blame any one person, because I think it's such a big chain that goes back and forth. It's current and it's past. But we didn't have the right scientists studying the right things, and we didn't have the right masks in the right places and the right ventilators, the right prices. So I think that I would love to see people spending more time, more money, more thought on really doing things that'll make the world a better place, and less on shopping and delivering pizza quicker. And the third is maybe this one. All the ones for my family and myself are private, and I will hold those out. I will not do that. But I would love J.K. Rowling to write another Harry Potter book. I think that would be awesome, and I would love to see the movie of that. So there you go.
Those are 3 heartfelt wishes. And by the way, it's actually interesting because, one of the things there's this company, I forget where it's based at. I think it's based stateside, but they make these little plush stars for children. So you might be wondering now, it's like, well, wait a minute, the genie lamp, the stars, what would you wish for, right? It's interesting how things always come together. In perfect and divine timing. Just a few housekeeping notes, friends and neighbors, before we officially wind down our trolley stop here together this week. We appreciate all of the tremendous support already this month, because it is the celebration of dads all month long here at Empowered Publicity. So to all of the fathers out there, to all of the grandfathers like David out there, all of the father figures out there that are doing their part to be able to bring in love and compassion and joy into the minds and the hearts of children. We thank you. And of course, one of our gifts to you, of many throughout the course of this month, is our next trolley stop, the next edition of the Empowered Publicity Storytime with Mr. Jonathan, this forthcoming Thursday, June the 11th at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. One of our favorite friends and neighbors out in Los Angeles, California, award-winning best-selling children's author, the creator of the Eli Benjamin Bear series, Hal Price, will be sharing his brand new release, The Bear Essentials. Feel free to stay connected with us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at Empowered Publicity to check out Hal's brand new Read Out Loud through our friends and neighbors at Kidlit TV. While you're at Kidlit TV, of course, feel free to check out David's Read Out Loud of What You Would Wish For as well. And we'll be reconnecting with one another next Monday for episode number 80. That's a nice round number, right? It's interesting because we have this youthful energy in our hearts, friends and neighbors, but we're starting to get a little older here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series. But with age brings wisdom and experience. We're going to be sharing such a beautiful message, courtesy of one of our favorite friends and neighbors here in the Buffalo, New York area. The brand new release, Beatrice and the Sunflower Gift. We're going to be talking even more about kindness and your life changing in a big way, courtesy of Stephanie Harwaluski, who's going to be joining us as our featured guest here for episode number 80 of the Children's Book Spotlight series next week. So if this message has brought hope, joy, love, compassion, forgiveness, healing into your heart, thank you. If you feel that this message needs to be shared with someone in need, someone that's a little bit down on their luck, that needs to be reminded that, hey, they've got 3 wishes coming their way too as well, we encourage you to be able to share episode number 79 and David's wonderful and heartfelt message on Facebook or your favorite social media platforms of choice. If you are a children's author, if you are a children's illustrator, and you would like to appear as a featured guest on the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight series, to share the release of your brand new children's book and your inspiring story, or if you would like for us to be able to feature your brand new children's book on the Empowered Publicity Storytime with Mr. Jonathan, you know where to connect with us at empoweredpublicity.com, in addition to Facebook and Instagram at Empowered Publicity and Twitter at empowered_PR. And of course, this particular gentleman's been hanging around over our shoulders over the course of this past hour together. So let us remember the message and the love of Mr. Rogers, which is very much ever present, especially right now. And let's remember our favorite series of numbers here at Empowered Publicity in the Children's Book Spotlight series, 143 and 243. Now, of course, we never fly solo at the Children's Book Spotlight series here at Empowered Publicity. 143 means that I love you. But David's joining us this evening, so the love is magnified. 243 means that we love you. I still don't know the whole how Mr. Rogers weighed 143 pounds for his entire natural adult life. It's just one of the, maybe he wished for that and he was blessed with that. The last thing that I want to mention, friends and neighbors, is thank you for your support of the children, for what it is that you're doing right now. I'm just seeing so many smiles on children's faces as I went about my errands today here in the Buffalo area. And it's really a sign of great things to be able to come. So whether you are a parent, whether you're a grandparent, whether you're a teacher, you're a principal, whether you're a children's author, for what you're doing to bring more light and love into the mind and the heart of a child and children all across the country and around the world, we appreciate that. And of course, we've got some special surprises headed your way over the course of the coming weeks ahead as we count down to the celebration of our 6-year anniversary at Empowered Publicity. We are super excited about all of that. So it's time for David and I. We always fit, all of us, we fit in this neighborhood trolley together. We've got a beam of light to catch. So we appreciate you spending some time with us here this evening as this has been such a great message, friends and neighbors. So we thank you for spending some time with us here in our neighborhood at Empowered Publicity, and we look forward to connecting with all of you this forthcoming Thursday with episode number 8 of the Story Time with Mr. Jonathan. But once again, one final time, the brand new release. It's like if Sunshine became a children's book. That's a great endorsement. If Sunshine,
that's the best endorsement we got. It's beautiful.
A children's book. What would you wish for? But not only what would you wish for, what would you do, friends and neighbors? Courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Zonder Kids. Feel free to head on over to Amazon.com. Leave your 5-star review in the process, or better yet, head on over to your local Barnes & Noble, your favorite children's bookstore, favorite independent bookstore. Walk in, purchase the book, talk to people, even if you still have to wear a mask for the time being. Engage, connect, bring your neighborhood alive within your heart and within your surroundings around you. Thank you very much for all of your time here this evening and for your continued support of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight series. We'll see all of you over the next several days. This forthcoming Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, and next Monday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. For myself, Jonathan Masiulionis, for David Sable, we've got that beam of light to catch, friends and neighbors. Thanks again for your time here this evening. We'll talk once again very soon. Take care.